Welcome to our next video in this series of the rise of the Eco Guards. Stand on guard with me. The call to serve Canada. Part 2. Section A. Conflicted and paralyzing agendas. Over a great many years, I've felt and heard the call to stand for my country, its peoples, its ecosystems, and other life forms. Probably because I recall previously seeing, but also being very heavily impressed or influenced upon as a very young child. As I viewed the former President of the United States and leader of the free world, John F. Kennedy, state on a black and white television in a previous recording he made years earlier. These prophetic important words.
Now the trumpet summons us again, not as a call to bear arms, though arms we need, not as a call to battle, though in battle we are, but a call to bear the burden of a long twilight struggle, year in and year out, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, a struggle against the common enemies of man, tyranny, poverty, disease, and war itself. Can we forge against these enemies a grand and global alliance, north and south, east and west, that can assure a more fruitful life for all mankind? Will you join in that historic effort? In the long history of the world, only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger. I do not shrink from this responsibility. I welcome it. I do not believe that any of us would exchange places with any other people or any other generation. The energy, the faith, the devotion which we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it. And the glow from that fire can truly light the world. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Just that part of his first great speech as president and leader of the presumed free world. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Still resonates to this day and is even more important now, here in our future. Nevertheless, I was also inspired because of another the final speech and farewell by another former president of the United States, Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1961, before John F. Kennedy took office, which was being broadcast as part of a documentary of the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation sometime in the early 1970s. Profoundly so, those two men, as well as many others before them, seen the potential of all our democratic nations as beacons of hope towards our equality, liberty, freedom, and justice for all of humanity throughout the rest of the world, as they and our countrymen work to protect our limited forms of those values within our democracies. Anyhow, I really don't like the idea of even boasting or promoting myself, but in order for you to gain a better perspective of the many things that I've achieved over the last 50+ years with the help of a great many other people, as well as my ways of seeing things and the limited perspectives of what I believe is the overall big picture. Of course, with the help of many other caring individuals, while still trying to just live life and gain a greater knowledge of a great many excessive amounts of physical and ecological things, scientific protocols, and energetic spiritual matters. I feel that I'm left with no choice but to attempt to properly articulate those many volunteerisms and so many more factual societal positive inputs, in order to better represent what will be forthcoming in not only the future series of videos that will be found within this Stand on Guard with Me channel, but so that these may also play their parts in the enlightenments of other individuals, organizations, and governments that will be required for all our other innovative eco-based solutions, as well as our other initiatives in the future. So here I go. Whether by learning spiritual and moral mannerisms and serving in my youth as an altar boy at a local Roman Catholic church, and further exploring our local library for some of the other religions and spiritual guidances over a great many years, which actually caused a priest at that church that I was also questioning about those spiritual findings to begin to push me away from continuing in that role. Nevertheless, I would continue over all those many future years to attend a great many other houses of worship as I sought clarity of purpose and my own spiritual enlightenments, or learning a great deal about our natural ecosystems while in the Boy Scouts of Canada and in an Air Cadet Squadron or other military organizations of the Canadian Forces, while also helping several times in many other political campaigns of some personal and family friends when I was very young, like between 7 to 19 years of age. Whether by limitedly helping in those campaigns of the other individuals seeking to serve as Moncton's mayors or provincial candidates vying for our riding seat, or even as the premier of our province in the NB legislature, or even vying to be our Canadian Prime Minister, such as the Honourable Mayor Leonard Jones or the Honourable Mayor Gary Wheeler, or by observing a man of deep Canadian values and convictions, the late Honourable 15th Canadian Prime Minister, Mr. Pierre Elliott Trudeau, as a younger man seeking his leadership bid to lead our country. While also during those times, I would watch while standing within the masses of peoples as he and his wife Margaret would wave at the crowd while leaving Moncton after their campaign stop as they both stood on the back of a VIA train as they continued their campaign journeys. Later in time, and after he attained the position of Prime Minister, as well as much negotiating with all the Canadian premiers, later he and Queen Elizabeth signed into law our Canadian Constitution and Charter of Rights and Freedoms. But even this did not appease all groups within Canada that required many other rights to be added with those important documents, such as all the native indigenous tribes' self-governance requirements, and of course Premier René Lévesque of La Belle Province de Quebec and the French language protections that he and his peoples was insisting upon, and so much more. During those years, I would also be heavily involved in finding solutions towards our transient peoples and homeless needs, or the true alleviations of poverty in our province, let alone our city. And from early 1978 to 1984, I did live and serve within the Christian home centers while further studying many spiritual texts, as well as continuing my earlier studies of our Riverside city dumps that I had started around the age of 6 years old, as well as the sources of pollutants being placed within those places. And also helped several other not-for-profit groups to get established here in Moncton, whom were attempting to also help in the alleviations of poverty. Sometime later, several of us would begin to discuss the creation of the Eco Guards organization in mid-1986 and truly formed in 1987, where at first I would also successfully limitedly non-invasively stand and physically protest and promote for eco-justice for all of the human race and all our ecologies, economies, and all life forms included, and so much more. For we believed in a truly balanced approach towards all these matters. But that's a story that will be better served later. Around that time, there did not seem to be anyone in our city, let alone our province, dealing or attempting to bring to the light the true extent of ecological devastations as it relates to these types of concerns or issues surrounding our waters, lands, and skies. Other than Greenpeace, but they seem to be interested in stopping all the whaling going on in the world. So the need seemed great, but truly not as great as many others, like our homeless issues that I had worked hard to help and correct for some peoples. I'll get into that part after the next in the series of these videos. And to be straightforward about it, part of these actions were a direct result of a series of speculative fiction literary illustrated novels I had created earlier from 1983 to 1986, that were then combined into one novel in 1987, and further sought to have properly published throughout those many other years. But also because we had evaluated those ecological conditions surrounding our landfill sites for a great many years and attempted to correct some of those on our own through some of our endeavors. but soon realized the extent of work that would truly be required. And we were not being paid to achieve any of this, which is still the case. And we did this for a great many years. And then we at the EcoGuards think tank had created and sent a great written and illustrated proposal to Moncton's mayor, the Honorable Leopold F. Bellevaux, and the New Brunswick-Hatfield government of the day in early 1987 and then again in 1988, after the Honorable Frank McKenna won as our premier, as well as all 58 seats in our legislature, requesting that the province and the city council finally close the ecologically damaging Petit Kodiak Riverside City Dump, and replacing it with a truly unique type of recycling series of stations to replace the old municipal and rural landfills throughout NB. But to also clean up and restore those destroyed wetlands and other sites in order to maintain some sort of ecologically balanced approach towards all of these places, including our waters, lands, and skies. And if not, then at least properly quarantining these places, which did limitedly occur but still not done properly even to this day, but they are now starting to truly understand or comprehend the importance of those actions and goals. I knew governments work slow, but this is unbelievable. That said, again later in time, but really over 2 decades after our limited collaborated successes with having that landfill permanently closed, while we were still conducting many other eco-based and alleviation of poverty endeavors in New Brunswick, things took a turn for what some would consider the betterment of our river and ecosystems, but truly turned out to be something else. Watch for that in the next installment of Stand on Guard with Me. Next time, Stand on Guard with Me. The Call to Serve Canada. Part 2. Section B. Altered Attributes.